I'm Megan Skidmore. For 2.5 years, I have been talking about evolving faith journeys. I started to tire of the heaviness of this focus. I had the clear message come through. It is time for Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast to evolve into Living Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. With the same vulnerability and unapologetic authenticity, I will be focusing on the joy in this journey, the life and the living that comes on the other side of maybe, on the other side of what's possible. I want to talk about claiming spiritual sovereignty and becoming your own captain of your vessel. Let's celebrate releasing what no longer aligns for you and connecting with your higher power and honor expanding your energy field to make room for all things new. The vibration is high this month on Living Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast. Pretense is dropped and caution thrown to the wind in each interview. I am dropping a new episode daily, spotlighting one of the amazing, soul-led, heart-centered authors of Joan of Arc Publishing, or JOA Publishing, founded by Kira Brinton. Like the namesake for this publishing house, each one embodies the fearless, God-centered spirit left by the legacy of Joan of Arc. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single one. Welcome to today's episode of Living Beyond the Shadow of Doubt. Today I have Brooke Andersen with me, another of my fellow JOA Collective members, Mosaic Network members, and fellow author. And Brooke has a miraculous story. I am going to give so much time to you, Brooke. I am so grateful that you are stepping into your brave, courageous self yet again and coming to share this with us today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
It's been a long road.
Mm-hmm. It has, the little of it that I know. So let's just start. If you'll just take a moment, introduce yourself and share a bit about your background.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Brooke Andersen. I am a wife of 13 and a half years and a mama to 4 boys right now. Right. No, that sounds wrong. We are done. That sounded real wrong.
I got you.
Love them to pieces. But yes. So I'm a mama to 4 boys, wild children. And I joke that this is my zoo and these are my monkeys. And I just, each of them are really miracles. And we can get into that. My husband and I were both raised LDS. Mm-hmm. And we didn't, at the time we were central Utah. We lived in Utah County. We were both mostly raised within Utah. And we just didn't really question it, I guess. I think I didn't fully sleepwalk through my childhood, wasn't given that opportunity, but I also just had so much faith in everyone else around me. And every single person I looked up to believed in this. So this must be everything they say it is. Everyone I respected,
Sure. So were your parents and grandparents, were they also of the LDS faith?
So my dad's side was, my dad, his parents, I don't know how many generations it goes back on his side. My mother was a pioneer, in her words. So my mother was born and raised in England, and she joined the LDS Church at 17 and is the only family member on her side. And so my faith journey kind of rocked her world for a hot few years because, she took great pride in being the first member of her side, the family, to join the LDS Church. And I was the first child to find my own way. So, but I was raised in Utah County mostly. And so my neighbors, my friends, I think I only knew 2 people that weren't LDS because back when I was a kid, it was even higher population than there is now of LDS people. So I married my husband at 18,
Okay.
very LDS. That really wasn't why, but my husband is 8.5 years older than me. And so he had been a bachelor for quite some time. I just teased that he was waiting for me to grow up, and he jokes that he decided to get me young to train me. And I said that really backfired. But we also get teased a lot about our story because we met at my very first young single adult activity. And he left that barn dance saying he was going to marry me. And within 24 hours, I just call it a spiritual slap in the face. Like God made it so clear that he was to be my husband. And I decided to text him that I was going to marry him that night.
That's
Really
bold.
bold. Yeah, real bold. So I just sent him a text after that night and I said, I'm going to marry you. And he replied, okay. And I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, I knew last night. I was like, oh, okay, sweet. So our first real date's Friday. Let's go plan our wedding. We were married in the temple 9 weeks and 6 days after meeting. And I was just told there was like slim to no chance I'd be able to have babies. And so we weren't all that precautious on our honeymoon and left our honeymoon pregnant.
Oh, okay.
So we were really just thrown right into it.
Yes, you were.
1 year of meeting each other at that barn dance, we were holding our 6-day-old baby.
Wow.
And we sat on our couch as rather newlyweds still, holding our 1-week-old baby and telling him the story of how we met. And I was like, this is a really fun tradition. I love this. And it was really just funny because we'd never really sat and told the whole story to anyone before from both our sides at the same time. And it was just so fun to hear his version of the night that we met and my version. And God just really, over and over again, just, I'm like, I don't deserve this man. But God knew. And he has been my rock through everything that was to come.
So let's fast forward a little bit then. I know that your status with your faith journey has significantly shifted. Can you share about that time? Was it him first, you first, kind of both of you? What were the circumstances? Yeah, if you can share with us that part.
We have a really unique story when it comes to our faith because neither of us were actually actively searching for anything else.
Okay.
We were both very still strong in our LDS faith. I had just given birth to our third son in 3 years. Our oldest turned 3 the day before this event. So we have a brand new 3-year-old. We have a just barely 2-year-old or 1-year-old.
Okay.
So we have 3, 1 infant, and our baby is 3 weeks old. We had taken a couple weeks off of church, which was very unusual for me. I'm usually like, I give birth on a Tuesday and I'm back at church on Sunday. And I was just like, I can't go right now. This was a lot on me. I just need some rest. And so we actually took 2 weeks off of church after this birth. And at my son's 3rd birthday party, my husband's mother just said she had had this small kitchen fire and she didn't take any pictures or evidence. And my husband, as a former fireman, was like, Mom, like, I gotta see this. And she was like renting her house. So she's like, there will be no evidence of this fire. Fire is a bit of a strong word, but that's what she called it. So the next day, we decided to just drop in her house unannounced to check it out. And my husband had just gotten his real estate license. And the neighbor across the street had just listed their house for sale. So we walk in and he's like, Mom, why didn't you like tell me they were going to move or sell their house? And just to let them know I'm an agent. And she goes, well, honey, I haven't been to church in 4 months. And that was a real shocker because she just was like the letter of the law with the LDS church. And it led, like, watered down version, it led to 6-hour conversation. The first 3 hours, my husband really took the lead and he was just like, if you don't believe anymore, I want to understand why and where your faith is. And so he sat down at her dining table with her laptop, with her Book of Mormon quad and his phone and the Bible. And he just was like, shoot me. Like, he was like, water hose me. And I handed her our baby and I climbed up on top of her counters and I started scrubbing the soot off her white cabinets, which was the extent of the damage. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I am doing something, or I'd be like shit and bricks right now. And I kept like looking over at him when she turned away, and he's looking at me and he's like giving me big eyes like, oh my gosh, doesn't this make sense? And I'm giving him big eyes like, slow your horses. Like, we've got 3 sons, baby. This is the foundation of our family. And then I just decided, if this faith is everything, if this religion is true, it can withstand any questioning going on, and there's no harm in listening. Mm-hmm. So I started to listen to the conversation, and near the end of the 3 hours, I started to ask a few questions, making sense of some things. And I said, okay, I want to speak to a Christian woman. And I asked her to call someone I knew that she knew that had been Christian her whole life. And I'd met her a couple times, and she lived just like a mile down the street. What I didn't know was her husband was actually a pastor. And I'd never met her husband before. So she comes over with her husband, and it starts the next 3 hours of this conversation. And this time it was really me taking the lead. I was doing compare and contrast of my faith in the LDS church and then Christianity beliefs. So it was like, this is my faith. This is what I believe. This is what the Mormon church actually believes. And this is what Christianity actually believes. And what I realized in that moment was I didn't believe in the same God as the Mormons.
I see.
And that rocked me, because the God I prayed to was not once a man. The God I prayed to was the God that had always been, has no beginning, has no end. And that's very much a biblical belief system. And I was like, why would I pray to a man who's just like farther down this road than me, who's like already figured it out?
No, Brooke, that's really fascinating to me. You could see that by going through that compare contrast process. And I have, I'm blessed to already know your story. That's fascinating to me, knowing then what was down the road for you. I would really love to share that part with our listener, because that's where some true amazing miracles began to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right around the time of the birth of your fourth?
Yeah. So
let's go there.
Essentially, my husband and I were saved 10 days apart. So my husband was saved in his mother's house that day, and 10 days later, I officially was saved. And I say saved because I didn't necessarily know where my salvation was before, because it was a works-based, works and faith, but works-based religion. And I recently realized this. When I was saved, I prayed to God and I said, God, I don't know what my future looks like. I don't know what this is going to do to my relationships with my family, but I want to live a life that no one can doubt you are real when they look at it. I want people to hear my story and go, I had no faith in God before this moment, but I know there's no way you would be here without him.
Wow. You said that. Oh my gosh. Okay. Keep going.
I know. And I like...
As part of my commitment to giving back, every first Friday of the month, I offer a free coaching hour. Anyone is welcome to join, and you may leave your camera off and change your name if you would like to remain anonymous. This is an opportunity to get introduced to my style of holistic coaching and what it would be like to work with me. Gain real skills, insight relevant to you, and fresh perspective on life circumstances. Each month is a different topic. For those attending, there will be opportunities for a complimentary one-off energy alignment session. Once registered, you will have access to discount code codes for my other offerings. To get the link, including all the resources, register to complete the agreement at the link in the show notes.
I just realized this last fall, like, well, shit, Brooke, maybe don't pray such bold prayers, but we won't be here without him. So, fast forward, my fourth son actually was a real surprise. We call him our God planned baby. And my third son was 18 months old when I got pregnant with him. And if you remember, my first three were less than 3 years apart. So, an 18-month gap, then being pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm starting over. We were going to do the adoption route, and we were just looking at like starting the process to adopt like two siblings or something. Like we just felt really called. Like we knew our family wasn't over, but my pregnancies are so bad. I was like, I'm done. We were actively preventing, and I got pregnant, and I was just distraught.
Yes.
I'll be honest. I'll be like, there's no shame, okay? I know there are people who are hurting because they are waiting for babies, and my heart is with you. This was like I had PICC lines on home nurses, and I would lose 50 pounds and I'd throw up all 9 months. I'd start throwing up before I could take a pregnancy test typically, and I threw up through labor. I was so sick. I just was like, God, I don't know how I'm doing another pregnancy. I can't do another pregnancy. I am not strong enough. Which like kind of becomes like the theme of my life. And I told my husband, normally I kind of like have a habit of just like texting my husband things, like, will you marry me? Oh, hey, I'm pregnant. Here's a picture of the test. Like I like suck at keeping my mouth quiet and telling him things in person. And this time I was so shocked, I needed the day to process it. Like I was not like the day before I was just making a bunch of treats for a church activity, and I was just so freaking nauseous from the sugar smell. And so the next morning when I was still nauseous, I was just like throwing the kids in my bathtub, and I was like, I've got this pregnancy test. It's not expired yet. Like, I'll just take it for the heck of it. I literally did not think I was pregnant. And I take this test, and sure enough, it lights up real fast. And I just dropped it right there on the floor and started crying. And I took some deep breaths, and I came out, and I put my toddlers in the bathtub, and I leaned into my youngest son, who was almost 18 months old, and I whispered to him, you're going to be a big brother. Don't hate me for it. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I put him in the tub. And I took pictures of each of the kids' face in the tub as they were playing with bubbles or shampooing their hair and their goofy faces. And I did a little meme, and I don't even remember what I wrote, but it rhymed because at the time I just thought I was a poet. I've been writing poetry my whole life to cope with my life. And I did this little rhyme with each of their faces, and I put the pregnancy test on square 4. And I was showing my husband that night pictures of the church event I had gone to when I came home. And then he scrolled to this photo, and he's like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm pregnant. And he's like, okay. I was like, okay. So fast forward, my son's born. I struggled the whole pregnancy, accepting it even into labor. My midwife is like texted me. She's like, your labor is stalled because you will not accept you're pregnant. And she had me go write lines, literally. I am pregnant with my 4th child. I am in active labor. I am a mom of 4 to get my labor to progress. And I had him, and it was the most amazing birth. And when he was 10 days old, it was the first time I experienced postpartum psychosis. And it was the first time I experienced just the extreme paranoid feeling of being like hunted. And it was the first time I hallucinated about this man that essentially become the basis of my hallucinations. Basically, they all came down to this guy was trying to kill me or chase me or hunt me down. I don't know. And it's crazy because, you are suicidal when you are dealing with this. And I was so terrified of him killing me, even though he wasn't real. I really wasn't sure if he was real or not at the time, to be honest. I was like, I don't know. Is he there? Is he not there? Like, I felt so crazy. I was. And it's like, And I was so suicidal and I just wanted everything to end. At the same time, I wanted to end on my terms and not someone else's. And I think that's just so human of us. And I ended up struggling with postpartum psychosis for about 18 months. And for those who don't know about postpartum psychosis, it is typically something that if you don't get treated in 2 to 3 weeks, the success rate is not very high. And often when you hear mothers have harmed their babies on TV and stuff, it is typically mothers who are suffering from postpartum OCD or postpartum psychosis. Postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety is not going to cause you to hurt your baby. And this was like a real fear of mine. I was really scared of myself. I hadn't bonded with my son since birth. Wasn't even sure I liked him sometimes, and it was just really hard road. And I say all of this because there's so much shame held around it. And moms need to know that, like, all these feelings, you're not alone in them, and that there is hope. There is absolutely hope for healing, for love, for connection. So at 18 months, I was hospitalized for 5 days and started to get the help I needed. I ended up going to therapy once to twice a week for the following 9 months. And finally, right before my son's second birthday in July of 2019, I just felt it all lift from me. I had been going to therapy. I've been doing all the homework. I've been seeing the psychiatrist. I've been getting my medication balanced and figuring it out. And I just felt like there was still a cloud over my head. And just one night, I was laying in bed and it lifted. And I just started crying. And my husband's like, "Oh, girl, what's wrong? Like, what's going on?" And we were just really exhausted at this point with everything I'd been going through for both of us. I mean, as I said, like he was just a rock through it. He went to every therapy appointment with me. We went once a week. And in him going, not only did it give him a clear idea of actually what I was struggling with and how I was thinking, but it also protected our marriage. We got so many skills about how to communicate about really hard things in there. And that was just like a byproduct of it. Him just being willing to show up and support me. So I just said, it's gone. Like, it's a cloud. It's just lifted. And I said, I know it sounds crazy, but it's not coming back. I know it. Like, I know for sure this time it is gone. And my son turned 2 about 10 days later, and we just celebrated the crap out of it because I was still here.
Yeah.
And we were going to therapy still, and my therapist was just like, "Okay, now it's time to start dreaming again. It's time to switch roles." Trevor's been a caregiver for so long, unknowingly sometimes. And it's time to switch roles. Like, it's time for him to start dreaming about work and what he wants to pursue. Like, he was starting to feel really lost through so much caretaking. And I was just really struggling with motherhood. The postpartum psychosis was gone, but I still was struggling. I was working through resentment, basically. And that was a process. Like, I resented my youngest for a while because I felt like he caused it, but he wasn't the cause of it. His birth triggered it, but he absolutely wasn't the cause.
I'm sure you're not alone in that among the mothers who have experienced that.
Yeah. And so, it's September of 2019. He turned 2 the end of July. We celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary in August. And it was the best 3 days. Like, we spent like 2 nights and 3 days away from the kids, just celebrating, and biking Park City and walking and hitting coffee shops and talking for hours. And it was just best. And in September, I was getting ready one morning and my little 2-year-old waddles into my bathroom, being really silly and goofy. And I just started laughing. And I looked at him and I just said, "Oh my gosh, I love you. You are such a silly, spirited boy and the addition we needed." And it hit me so hard because I just spoke it and didn't think about it. And I realized it was the first time I had experienced a motherly love for him since he was born. And it was the first time I really felt like I had bonded with him. And no mom should have to go 2 years without bonding with their baby. It's just terrible. And then just shortly after that, less than 2 weeks, I'd been experiencing headaches for about a month at this point, and they were turning into migraines. And over a process of the third week in September, I went from just having like this headache that I just couldn't even think through and feeling really dizzy and occasionally like blacking out to losing words in the middle of speaking. I'd be speaking and I'd stop halfway through a word and I'd just like forget what I was saying. And then my speech started to get really slow. And then it started to get robotic. And then I stopped feeling my legs. And then I stopped feeling my arms and my torso. And I was at the doctor's office on a Friday. This had all been slowly happening all week. We had done like MRIs and imaging, and we were at his office to follow up with him about it. And he goes, "I know you have a family history of Chiari malformation, which is where your brain is sliding into your spinal cord." And he's like, I'm worried that you've developed like a severe case of this or something, and I want to send you to the hospital to be checked by a neurologist. Mm-hmm. And I went to stand up from his office, and I could stand and I could not move. I stood up and I was staring at my feet, and they wouldn't move. I was like telling them out loud to move. I was closing my eyes and thinking really hard. This is the craziest thing. And they had to bring in a wheelchair and literally pick me up and put me in the chair because I could not even twist my body. All I could do is go from sitting to standing, but I could not move anything else. So at the hospital, they did more imaging, and basically they just said, "This is your postpartum depression coming back." We just laughed and we're like,
Wow.
"No, it's not." And that just really started this battle that I was not expecting because we thought we had just won the darkest battle, right?
Oh, sure.
I went home. I started researching all my symptoms with Chiari malformation, with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome or EDS, because I suspected I had that. And in doing so, I found a couple YouTubes and a list of doctors basically pop up. And in watching some YouTubes and watching educational videos from these doctors, I pretty much self-diagnosed what was going on. I overnighted a hard neck brace to myself. And when the hard neck brace showed up and I put it on, once I got it on, it basically unkinked my neck. And my neck had collapsed. And so all communication in my body had cut off.
My gosh.
And so,
Wow, you had to do that yourself?
and so once
Wow.
I got that elevated just enough, I had no feeling in my body, but I slowly regained movement in my body and the ability to speak, because when I had no neck brace on, I actually lost my ability to talk for a couple days completely. And literally all I could do for like 2 days was control my blinking and breathing. And I basically just emailed my doctor and I was like, this is what I think I have. This is the imaging I need. It's not in Utah. I need you to send imaging requests to Las Vegas and to Colorado, and I have to travel to get this done. And I just went for it. I went to Vegas, did imaging, went to Colorado like a week later, did more imaging, sent them off to the two surgeons in America because at this point I realized basically I was nearly internally decapitated. And that was the root of the problems. And the two surgeons in America turned down my case. One did not specify why. The other one wouldn't even look at my case because my insurance was incorrect, which left me to go outside of the country. And so around Thanksgiving in 2019, I sent all this stuff off to Barcelona to the next surgeon. And he was actually the surgeon I really wanted because I had watched hours of continuing education on YouTube for doctors. And I like knew this stuff like the back of my hand. I'd watched the surgery performed on there. And long story short, in January of 2020, he did accept my case. And I did go on to have a skull cervical fusion with him during COVID. And you can read about that in my book more. You can read about the details of how that came to be and everything because it's real good, real good. So I did write a book about it all because you can't like live through everything I've lived through and then just go back to being like a target mom. You could, but I couldn't because I do bold shit. Okay. So the book is called Through Fire and Grace because I went through a lot of fire and I wouldn't be here without God's grace and finding my own relationship with him, my own way. Through leaving a strict religion, it allowed me to find my own path to God and feel free of really worldly, legalistic foundation beliefs, the pressure to be this perfect mom, the pressure to be what everyone else wanted me to be. And I learned through my chronic illness and in paralysis as a mother, all I could do was sit on the couch. All I could do was lay on the grass if they wanted to ride their bike and put sunglasses and hat on. Like I couldn't take them on walks like bike rides or to the museum anymore. And I found I was a chronic doer, especially through postpartum psychosis. That's how I coped with it. And then I went to the exact opposite and I couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And I learned in that moment how important each of us are because of who we are, not what we do. Mm-hmm. I was everything to these four boys still, even though I couldn't do the same things with them. Mm-hmm. I'd lay on the couch or I'd lay on the floor with them. I'd cuddle them. I'd tickle their backs. I'd lay outside with them so they could play on the play set or ride their balance bikes. But I couldn't cook them dinner. I couldn't do the dishes. I couldn't bathe them. I couldn't even hold them. I couldn't pick them up anymore. I had a 2-year-old. Mm. I went from holding him one night to not knowing it was the last time I was ever going to pick him up. And I found so much value in who I was because of who I am to them. And I think that is just such an important message. Like our value comes because of who we are. Mm-hmm. And your value in God's eyes does not change because of what you do or don't do. It's not a checklist to earn his love.
So what is so miraculous to me, and I'm sure it's not lost on you, you shared toward the beginning of our chat that you told God, I want to live a life that no one will doubt of your existence. And because of time, we haven't even got to, chat about the whole story. There's still so much more.
There is so much more. That's what the book is for.
And, you know, Brooke, you've been through lots of peaks, lots of valleys. You've learned so much, not just from others, but really from walking the walk and talking the talk and pushing through. Well, I'd say more than that. I would say striving and progressing and hoping and living through all of the hard. You long ago started to give yourself permission to own your sovereignty, and these experiences really, were your embodiment of that. Um, I'm I always like to wrap up by asking my guests this last question, and that is a reflection of the title of my podcast. And the question is, what does it mean to you to live beyond the shadow of doubt?
So good, Megan. That's such a good question. Um, for me, what it means to live beyond the shadow of a doubt is that I know who I am to myself. I know who I am in God's eyes. And I know that I'm not done here. I go into so much more in my book, and I share publicly for the first time about a near-death experience and how that changed the trajectory of my life. Because you don't fight 18 months of postpartum psychosis and be saved by God alone over and over again. Every time I went to commit suicide, God intervened. You don't have a near-death experience and choose to come back to your body and just not. If I did not choose to live differently, I would be depressed because I would not be living true to who I knew I was supposed to be and my purpose. These trials, these hells I've been through have been turned into passion. I give an analogy in the book, and I actually give it about sexual abuse. But the analogy is this experience of abuse, or in this case, the experience of these trials, can give you the logs. And these logs can either weigh down your backpack, and you can go build a fortress around yourself in the middle of nowhere and let no one in, or you can build a freaking bonfire with them and let it fuel your purpose and passion in life and make that bonfire so freaking big, no one can miss it. So I am just really choosing to live life to the fullest of my purpose and passion now, and not let what other people think stop at me. Because, I mean, often we ask ourselves, who am I to do this? And I just say, reverse that question. Who are you to not? Who are you to not do what's on your heart? It wouldn't come to you if it weren't for you.
Absolutely. That is so beautifully said, so profound. Brooke, it has been an honor and a privilege to chat with you. And I will leave the links to your book as well as how folks can get in touch with you or reach out with questions or just want to chat in the show notes. And just for fun, a little bit of levity, I like to throw out a few questions. I'm just looking for one-word answers, maybe two, so our listeners can get to know you. Tell us your favorite book.
So my favorite book, I mean, I don't know if I just have one favorite book right now because all the JOA books are so good. But I'll say my favorite book growing up was Goodnight, Mr. Tom.
Awesome. Okay, tell us, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I'm actually a very strong introvert.
Oh. And who is your favorite artist?
I actually don't have a favorite artist right now.
That's okay.
Just
Are you a morning lark or would you consider yourself a night owl?
I'd say I used to be very much a morning lark. Right now, that's a really good question.
Maybe you're neither.
Right now, I'm probably neither. Traditionally, I'm a morning person.
Okay. And Tell us your celebrity crush if you have one.
I actually don't have a celebrity crush, and I never have.
Okay. Do you do still or carbonated water, or diet soda, or some other fun beverage?
Well, coffee. Still water, coffee, or Dr. Pepper.
And then finally, the furthest place that you've traveled.
Furthest place I've traveled is to the UK, probably. England, Scotland, Wales, and Spain.
Mhm. Fun, all fun places. Brooke, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for gifting us with your story, your presence, your insights.
Thank you, Megan.
Writer, teacher, author, Mormon scholar, and founder of Dialogue Journal, Eugene England said, "My faith encourages my curiosity and awe. It thrusts me out into relationship with all creation and encourages me to enter into dialogue." As a proud member of the Dialogue Podcast Network, my hope is that Living Beyond the Shadow of Doubt podcast is an extension of that vision. Visit meganskidmorecoaching.com to find this podcast and additional free resources, including the link for a complimentary coaching session. Follow me on Facebook or Instagram for more, or to send me a DM. Help the podcast grow. Please follow, review, and share with a friend.